will see a doctor or a nurse practitioner from Cook's Children's through a virtual system. And we can, some of the things that we can see them for are coughs, cuts, earaches, fevers, headaches. We can screen them for strep or flu. So if they come to us with that, they see a nurse practitioner or a doctor over there, and they can diagnose them that way. They can send a prescription straight to the pharmacy, and then they give us a note for excuse for the school. So it's all done right there at that time. When they come to us, we call the parent and ask, do you want to use this virtual system? And they can be on a three-way with us with the nurse practitioner, or they can just say, call me afterwards and let me know the results of it. So I think it's a really good thing for our kids. We ask them to pre-register, but if at the time they come into our office and they are sick, then they can register at that moment as well. So it's not, I think I was told 50% of the kids that they see register at the time of service. So we hope to get them registered at the beginning, but if they don't, then it's good. So do you have any questions on it? I know I didn't tell a whole lot about, I was going to show you a video, but I didn't get to show the video. So let me answer questions that you may have.
I guess I just had a question. So in general, so is this going to be at each campus then?
At each campus. The
And
only
so
campus
is
it
it-
won't be is here, but we can walk those kids to Lakeside.
Okay. So the kid goes into the nurse's office, says, I don't feel so good. But right now, it's just take a fever. If it's high, you call the parents, come pick your kid
Right.
up. If it's not, it's, hey, lay down for a few minutes and then go back to class.
Right.
So now the option will be, hey, do you want to have a further discussion with this teledoc or
Yes,
telehealth
we have this
professional?
system that we can use now, and like a doctor's visit here in the clinic. So
Okay. And then
We'll
hopefully
have-
that way, if it is a fever and or something else, that can be better communication with the parent on what to do.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And- okay.
Is this an opt-in for the parents, or they have to opt in or opt out?
Yes, I think Cecilia's already put some information out about it. And so we asked them to pre-register, and we're going to push it out right at registration. But if they don't, then they come in and they have some of these symptoms, and we can call them and tell them we have this opportunity where they like to participate in it. So, and then they can register right then, and they can verify the Medicaid or CHIPS at that time. So,
And they take just about every insurance and Medicaid and all of
they
that.
take
correct?
Medicaid and CHIPS, which is really good for us here because we don't have a lot of places to refer them to in this immediate area for CHIPS and Medicaid. But they don't have to take a lot of insurances yet. I think there's a bill, if I'll let her speak on that, this goes before the, you wouldn't, she just told me about this, so this was exciting. So
Good evening. So in the state of Texas right now,
You can
the
come up.
way the regulations.
you can,
Yeah. It's being recorded, so they can hear you.
she just told me about this. And so this is great.
Yes, so thank you for having me this evening. So in the state of Texas right now, the way reimbursement works is that any program that is government funded, so Medicaid, CHIPS, STAR, is required to pay for these services as long as the service meets the same requirements if the child was treated and evaluated in person. Unfortunately, at this time, the state of Texas and Department of Insurance does not require commercial insurance companies to cover at the same level of benefit. So that's why we have reduced self-pay charges. However, I was telling Tony that there is a bill in front of Governor Abbott at this time waiting for his signature. It's already passed the House and the Senate that would require commercial payers after January 1 to recognize any service provided by telehealth, including those that are in school, to make them eligible for reimbursement and coverage for kids in the state of Texas. So.
Any other questions?
One question, just to make sure so I'm clear too. Even though they see the telehealth, if let's say they're tested for, most cases, I'm assuming going to be flu or strep, and they do come back, they're still required to go home that day.
Yes. They'll
It's
still be
just
required
that
to
it's
go
help.
home.
We're trying to basically help the parents by getting them the medical, basically appointment, then a staff, come pick your child, then go to health, then go get everything else, correct?
Right, and it keeps them from having to pull their other kids out of school, take them all to the doctor's office and get exposed to the other flu, if it's flu negative, and then they're getting exposed to everything, so. And we get those parent notes really good from them right then, so. Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nelson. This time I'd like to ask Mr. Ross Roberts, our Deputy Superintendent, to come up regarding a Special Population Services update.
President Myers, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Gallagher. I am going to bring our Executive Director for Special Populations, Courtney Clover, up, and she has put together a presentation on an overview of our continuum of services here in Little Elm ISD.
All right. Good evening, all. I hope you're well. Good evening, President Myers, Superintendent Gallagher, and trustees. We've got a pretty quick presentation for you, just kind of an overall update on special population services for the year. So we'll start with, I guess I have control of the presentation slides. So our first slide just kind of gives you an overall idea of the number of students that we serve under special populations. So we serve both Section 504 and special education or IDEA students who are eligible for services under IDEA. And so those are our current numbers of students who are eligible. And some of you have probably been receiving updates through TASB or those kinds of things. And so percent identified is something that's been kind of a hot topic in Texas lately. And so the percent identified of students with IEPs currently in Little Elm is 9.24% identified as compared to the total enrolled population in LEIST. We, just as overview, serve eligible children with disabilities from birth to age 22, and we provide services to children under 13 eligibility categories. So we don't diagnose, but provide eligibility to services for students who are eligible for services. And then our areas of focus over this past year through different program evaluation and different both formal and informal measures are to increase and improve the depth and quality of preschool program for children with disabilities, increased need for specialized programming for young children with autism or communication disorders, increasing and improving the depth and quality of programming for inclusive practices, increasing and improving the depth and quality of programming for specialized programs and programming, increasing and improving evaluation and services for students identified with specific learning disabilities, including dyslexia. And that's also where that 9.24% identified. A lot of the legislative updates and information that you probably read regarding that number come around information about dyslexia coming under identification for students with learning disabilities specifically. So with that, some of the special population spotlights that we would like to bring to your attention are our continuing partnerships with ECI, which you guys will see often on our summary finance that we partner with early childhood intervention. So the agency before us that serves our babies. So we do serve babies, like I've showed you on the slide before, at birth for children who are deaf, blind, or deaf and blind. So the district does serve them directly starting at birth. But we partner with early childhood intervention for babies birth to 2, and then we pick them up 2 turning to 3 as they become eligible for services through the school. So our spotlights are with Laura Kinder, who is the Executive Director for Tarrant County MHMR Early Childhood Services. That's the actual agency that has the contract for this area for ECI. Stephanie Marks is the coordinator for the Little Elm area. Their presence in our district and county have really increased the number of 3 to 5-year-olds that we have been able through Child Find to pick up and serve, and has definitely increased the number of 3-year-olds that we're finding. And as we all know, research shows that early intervention is key. So the earlier we can find them and intervene, the better long-term effects and long-term gains that we have for our kids. And then Lori Snook, who's a speech pathologist here in the district, she actually is the liaison between ECI and LEISD. She offices at Chavez, and she is our transition specialist for our babies coming in. So, so that's a spotlight with ECI. Then we also have a new Spotlight partnership coming up in the new school year in 1920 that we are going to be partnering with Texas Women's University Speech Pathology Program. And we'll be working with their graduate program. It'll be a mutual benefit to both, which will be university graduate students will be able to come in and do some of their clinical fellowship hours that they need. The district benefits because there's a shortage in the profession in general, but we have ongoing needs for speech pathology therapy and speech pathology evaluation. And so being able to partner with that graduate program helps provide evaluation and therapy needs in the district. And our speech pathologists in turn are able to supervise their graduate clinical fellowship students. So it'll be a great partnership coming up in the next year. We're also, and I believe last year we had gone over this and there was a question about this. So I'm happy to report that we're expanding our tuition-based pre-K classrooms. So we do have an expansion of one classroom to Hackberry Elementary. Mr. Richardson was gracious to find space at his campus. So we know space is a commodity that everybody is looking for a space. So he was able to find us a classroom at Hackberry. So we'll be opening our second classroom out there. So while the tuition doesn't cover 100% of the cost of salaries for teachers, but it does offset the cost of salary. So we will have a new location for as our babies are turning 3. So we have 2s turning 3, have a classroom to go to with age appropriate peers for speech and language and play models. One of our other spotlights, and Sergeant Gracia, and we were just talking about this at dinner a little bit ago, is that we have brought into our schools with our school resource officers training on crisis prevention and intervention. So we've been training our school resource officers with specialized behavior specialists on disability awareness and working with students who have emotional, behavioral, or other kinds of processing disorders, so that when our school resource officers are either requested to support or are interacting with some of our students who communicate differently than others, they're not perceived as being belligerent or non-responsive, that they're really coming from a place of understanding difference. So we were talking about that earlier tonight. And then we've also been partnering with Brent Woodall Kids Foundation. They're actually out of Irving, and they are an exceptional foundation. They are a nonprofit organization that works specifically with families and children with autism and behavioral needs. And so they have been great to really help us do some training in data collection and behavior supports. And so we're going to continue working with them on training some of our paraprofessional staff. And then there's always Special Olympics, a great time for all. Thank you for the amazing Jumbotron. It was a great experience for us this spring. I think it was the first time maybe that it had been used. I'm looking at Sandra because it was one of the first times that it had been used at a big event. So it was pretty awesome and a beautiful day. But we'd like to honor also is Knights of Columbus out of the Colony. They support every year. So they're embedded in our volunteers, but they are constantly part of our Special Olympics volunteers every year, along with all 3 Sonics in our area. So right over here next door to Lakeside, the Sonic up by Lakeview Elementary, and then over off of what, if anybody's been here long enough to know, is Four Corners. I see some of you saying it. Over off Four Corners, so Main 423 in Main, or King Road. These are the owners of all 3 Sonics, but they feed everyone lunch every year for free at the event. So we have like 3,000 or 4,000 hot dogs that are donated every year. So just a spotlight to our community partnerships for our event, but they're great to us every year. And then just a last kind of piece to bring to your attention and just to remind you is that almost every single one of our special ed service providers, which are oftentimes teachers in the classroom, paraprofessionals, therapists, and other service providers and evaluation staff, so much of our work is based on documentation. And part of our documentation system on the back side of that they aren't responsible for, but we are administratively, is we submit to the state for Medicaid reimbursement on the services we provide for students who are Medicaid eligible. And that revenue that we have been able to bring in from June 2018 to currently has been a little bit over $1 million. So annually, the special ed department, on average, brings in over $1 million in revenue that goes to the general fund. So we're constantly looking at ways to try to be innovative and know how we can be fiscally responsible, and also try to be creative and innovative in ways to bring in revenue too. So that's really our spotlight or our summary of special populations for the year. So any questions? Any questions for the board? Nope. Thank you.
Mr. Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Board President, Board Trustees, at this time, I'm going to ask our Director for Athletics to come up, and we've had an incredible year with our athletic program, and so we were asked to put together some highlights and an overview, so I'll have Sandra Howe come up now and present that to you.
Good evening, Superintendent Gallagher, Madam President, and Board Trustees. Thank y'all for having us here this evening. I'm just going to jump straight into this. We've talked about this before in terms of the benefits that extracurricular activities provides for our students. Better grades, better attendance, typically better attitudes in school, lower dropout rates, fewer discipline problems. In the last 2 months, I know myself, I've read 2 articles about businesses hiring students that have been in extracurricular and specifically athletics because of their ability to work in teams and to partner and to problem solve. So that's always a positive for us. Just a quick overview of our middle school to start out with. Middle school overall, we have 6 sports on the male side and 6 sports on the female side, and you can see the teams break down. The reason the number 2 in soccer is white is because the last time we presented to you guys a few years ago, we only had 1 team and 1 team. Those have been expanded to 2 teams now. At each on those levels. The tennis team over there, I would like to make a note on the 1 team on the girls. We separate and have enough to do 2 when we need to. Pretty much we're only playing Lake Dallas and 1 other school right now because Denton does not play tennis. They don't participate in tennis at the middle school level. Of course, we have cross country and we have track. Big note in the white is the participation numbers. Those have definitely increased since the last time we came before you guys. We're up 75 to 100, depending on which side you look at, and we're carrying higher numbers, and you'll see that on the next slide. This is the successes for the middle school this year. They do something in each sport that's a point system. So however they finish, they get so many points within each group. So this year, Lakeside Middle School overall was runner-up to the district cup standings. So we finished second overall. Of course, boys 7A football was district champions. Girls 7A volleyball was district runner-up. Boys and girls 7th cross country was district runner-up. Boys basketball 7A district runner-up. 8A was third, and girls basketball 7A was third, and 8A was district runner-up. Then you get to track, which football coaches love to see this one because we talk about it all the time. Teams in high school that typically win track championships are also winning in the sport of football. But anyway, 7th and 8th grade track on the boys' side were district champions, and then 7th grade girls were district champions as well. So you can see it's coming. And we are excited about it. Our focus over the middle school, and we've already started the process. We've had the coaches really going through their equipment this summer, getting rid of things that we know we're not going to be able to use, that are outdated, worn out, etc. But throughout this next year, those will be things that we'll be reviewing even more so as we start to plan to open 2 new middle schools. Continuing our long-term athlete development, we constantly look at this in strength and conditioning and our improvements, and we're constantly talking to our head coaches about, hey, let's make sure your vocabulary and everything you're using is being given to the middle school coaches and that everybody's using the same language as we train our athletes. The other interesting thing, if you have not downloaded our custom app, you should. Used to, on the middle school, you'd have to go out to the free app, and it was one site, and the high school app was another. Well, not any longer. Everybody's in the custom hub, and now when you click on teams and you go to a sport, you're going to be able to scroll down and not only see your high school logos, but then it's going to show the middle school teams right there, all in that sport. So that's a neat thing, I think, for parents in our community, being in that we're a single high school town. We'll be starting the planning of looking towards hiring coaches. Hopefully that'll start around January or February. And then one of the things we talk about all the time is how can we as an athletic program assist the principals on the campus in helping with the culture of the campus. So we constantly talk about that to see what we can do and the improvements that we can make. And the principals are great. They give us great feedback, and they always tell us where they need help. Sixth grade pre-athletics. I believe the last time we presented might have been 2016, so it's been a few years. And that is right. That's the year that we did implement sixth grade pre-athletics. So we are seeing the benefits of it. The kids are more ready. The parents are more ready. The communication seems to be bridged a little bit better. We're seeing that kids know what the expectations are when they walk through the door for seventh grade athletics because they've kind of been taken through it. They are also ready to accept those challenges in making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the classroom now that they are actually traveling and they're having to make up work and do things like that. We'll flip to our high school now. Our high school teams have not really changed very much. We're still running the same number of teams. I know in football, Kendrick's going to probably run a few more this year or try to. We teeter-totter with that every year. So the numbers are increasing. We finally got asked a question at the ninth grade presentation. Well, what are you going to do when all these kids from the middle school get to the high school? Are y'all going to add teams? So it's something that we do have to be prepared for down the line, and especially as we approach 6A. But you can see our participation numbers there at the bottom, from about 325 to 400 on the boys' side and 225 to 275 on the girls' side. And we are running, if I can get to my right page here, 10 and 10 in terms of the number of sports, male and female. Remember, we're in separate districts in football. We're in 5-5A, and then all the other sports are in 8-5A. That'll continue through this year. This year will be another realignment year. So come February, we'll find out if there's any changes to our districts or anything else that does occur. Here's the great news, which most of y'all know, and we're really proud of it. 11 programs were in the playoffs this year. I won't read you all the lists. Y'all should know them. 23 college signees. That's the second year in a row that we've been in the 20s. 83 all-district athletes, 12 MVP superlatives, 7+ all-area, all-region, and all-state players, 45 all-district, all-academics, and then 25 are area, regional, state coach association, all-academic. So they have to be nominated by their coach, and they have to meet a certain level to qualify. And then 2 coach association all-star players that just came out. And I don't know if y'all saw the recent tweets, but I know Lauren Lucas picked up another one, as well as Logan Kohler did this week. We also had a coach, and I should have put that on there. Coach Cordova got Coach of the Year for the district. Our focus for the high school, as is always, we're going to make sure our kids graduate. We want to make sure that we keep continuing to push them to take more AP classes if they're capable. Continuing to do our fundamentals and mastery and look at our long-term athlete development. Are we making progress over time? Are we growing kids and growing athletes? We still focus on multi-sport participation. Kendrick will talk about this in just a second. We changed our camps and went to a Little Lobo camp to where we did a full-day camp. The feedback we received was fantastic. So people are seeming to buy into that concept, and we want to expose those kids, those young kids, before they do participate at Lakeside, to every sport possible so they know that there's other sports out there. Emphasis on self-monitoring and leadership of teamwork. I have on another slide, I think it's the one we do the 2 words curriculum. We are switching to that fully. Coach Harbin's kind of been piloting that one, and we've really reviewed it in our leadership team. And so that's what we're going to switch to for all of our sports is this 2 words character curriculum. And then we're going to be reviewing the athletic code of conduct to do some updates and reviews to it this summer. When that is ready and comes out, we'll everybody re-sign a copy. Coach Brown's going to go over the next 3 or 4 items.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Sorry about that. Just real quickly, our coaches on the football side, the Texas High School Coaches Association, our UIL Association, has mandated for all high school coaches and middle school coaches to have certification as it became to tackling. This is all pertaining to prevention as it has to deal with concussion. So all of our coaches, we're having to have the 6-hour training, and we are doing that as well as our middle school. Also, with our continuing higher participation rates in our sports summer camps, we are pleased to announce that number a few years ago was at 350. Now we started that summer program on last Monday. Our numbers were 500. And so we're running 500 kids through Little M High School, that 7th through incoming 7th through 12th graders through that program each and every day. So we have 2 sessions. We have a session. Our middle school kids are reporting at 7:30. They go from 7:30 to 9:30. And within that 7:30 to 9:30 range is strength conditioning. We also do specific skill-related activities with them. So all of our coaches are able to teach our middle school kids sports-specific instructions in that specific sport. At 9:30, we have our high school kids. They report. So if you ever are coming through the high school during that time, there's a mass. It's a lot of parents picking up kids and a lot of parents bringing kids and high school kids traveling. But that portion starts at 9:30. We give a 15-minute window so we can allow for that. But then we start with our high school kids and we repeat that with strength conditioning. We also, from 11 to 11:45, we do skill-specific sports for the high school kids. So from 7:30 to noon, that place is rocking. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, up at the high school. Also, with that, Coach asked me to talk a little bit about that and what we're looking to do. That's our goal, is to continue to get more kids involved in multiple sports. I think that's the biggest need as we see going to the high school, and that's why we're stressing that with our younger kids and with our addition of the pre-athletics class that we've implemented. We are seeing an increase in students that are wanting to participate in multiple sports. So, for example, tomorrow, once we finish the conditioning part, all girls, we send them to volleyball skills training, and we encourage them all to go, whether you want to play or not. We want you to go to see if you can do it, if you would like to do it. And it also allows our coaches to do that. We do the same thing on our boys' side. So we rotate that each day. There's different sports going on each day. Football, we try to keep that going each and every day. But we do want to expose our kids to multiple sports.
One of the other great things that Coach Hatcher and Coach Brown brought in, you'll see listed on the food program, Little Elm High School as a place. Denton County does drop off. These kids are fed every day. So after they finish their training, we are putting nutrition into them right away, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. The other thing that occurred this year, his wife, Keisha Brown, and Coach Brown brought in a couple of college people in the NCAA and had a session for parents to do question and answer and talk to them about college requirements and the things that you need to have ready if you do want to play at the next level. And we had very good turnout for that this year. As y'all know, as we rebuild our facilities and especially we get turf fields, one of the needs of the district is to re-look at and reevaluate our facilities and our facility rentals and how we're going to possibly handle those once we have these new facilities that come online. Lastly, and it's already been turned in to administration, is for us to be more competitive in our coaching stipends. I did a 34 school district analysis, and we've met and turned that in. I've already talked about the Mascot Media app. We do have a custom website, both at the high school and the middle school as well. And we'll continue with those and getting people to come. Our program goals, of course, are to continue our athletes being academic ready. As I mentioned before, continuing to monitor that vertical alignment, driving parents to our websites and our apps, implementing that character curriculum, working with Mr. Tipton and the CTE department. We did hire a new teacher that's in the broadcasting class, and we're excited about that. He brings some pretty awesome skills. So we're excited to have him on board and can't wait to see what happens in terms of the number of games that we can possibly broadcast. And certainly the number of marketing capabilities that we'll have now that with the new scoreboard. And yes, thank you very much. It's awesome. We've used it twice. We did the district track meet and we did Special Olympics. And I'm going to tell you, it's a head turner. So it's absolutely wonderful. Continue to work with our booster clubs focused on fundraising and scholarships. We're shifting to a different model, or we're looking at it. We're trying to vote it in to where individual subclubs do not give scholarships, and that we push all of that to be a main scholarship fundraising deal with a goal of 25 to 30,000 every year. So that's a model that we're looking to change. And then we're also working on our championship history banners and what we're going to do with those and where they're going to be placed at each location. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Reeves, you're already on your way up. Thank you.
Thank you, board members and President Myers and Superintendent Gallagher. Just here to go over the first quarter 2019 growth report. This is a slide that you've seen many times, and it kind of looks the same over the last couple of years. And so we can continue to see the Texas growth rate at about 3.1%. You know, that's above the national rate of 1%. We are seeing, over 34,000 starts in the DFW area. I will show you a little later that in Little Elm, we're seeing that maybe decrease a little bit as we go through that. The unemployment rate, believe it or not, continues to go down in Texas. And so it's below full employment. 5%, they say, is fully employed. And so, as I say, every time we're continuing to see that struggle in our custodial services, our ground services, transportation, just, hiring people for those type of jobs. If we look at Texas enrollment trends, Texas total enrollment's a little bit close to 5.5 million. The total growth for this year is a little over 32,000. However, if you notice, we're still growing in Texas, but the rate is declining, I guess. And so that's due to the birth rates. We're seeing that people are waiting longer to have children or just electing not to have kids, or waiting a longer time. So we're seeing that rate go down. So if you look in 2014-15, it was around 80,000, and now it's down to 32,228. You'll see this reflected in our kind of pre-K numbers and in kindergarten numbers. So our demographers are taking that into account. If we look at Region 10 and 11 enrollment trends, you see that Little Elm is, in Little Elm ISD over the past 5 years, we've had an increase of about 17%. So 1,100 students we've seen in the last 5 years in Little Elm ISD. And right in the middle of all that red, that heat map, is Little Elm ISD. So we're kind of surrounded by a lot of growth that we're seeing. If we look, this is sort of just a numerical map of what we just showed the previous slide. And so you see Little Elm ISD in Region 11 is ranked 9th. There's that 17.1% that we talked about before over the 5-year period. If we look at the home ranking report, you look at Little Elm ISD, we rank 7th. And I want you to take a look at that VDL on that list over on the right. And that VDL stands for that vacant developed lots. If you remember last year, as we go through that, we were a little under, I believe, 1,400 starts and about over 1,400 closings. And so if you look at our vacant developed lots, we don't have 1,400. And so that means that we're not going to be able to hit that because there's not the inventory. And if you look over to the futures, That's, a little under 3,000. So, and what that means in the future is that means build out. And so as we go, we're getting closer to that build out number, as you see. So at some point we'll see those start to decline. However, Oak Point, as we go through, will continue to grow. So some of those areas may convert to larger developments. This is a new housing activity, and you can see that 219 starts, 213 closings. This is down from the previous quarter of last year. And some of that is due to the weather, though, because it rains 2 days, it's dry 2 days, and rains 2 days, and dries 2 days. So a lot of it's due to the weather, but it is a slowdown as well in Little Elm ISD. So we are running out of larger tracks. So, those Valencias, those Wild Ridges, those Tributes, we're not seeing those areas. And so we're looking at more of 100 or 50 acre lot developments. Now, you still might get 25 kids or 50 kids in those, and those will add up, but they're not as big as they once were in Little Elm ISD. This is just a kind of a heat map of the areas. Tribute continues to be that number one area with the annual closings. But if you look at Oak Point, you start adding those up, that's actually our largest area where we're seeing the largest amount of closings. This is just kind of that numerical representation of the previous map. Oak Point is yellow. That's our highest activity. We do have portables out there, and the ones at Prestwick will be relocated. One will probably go to Prestwick, and one may go to Lakeview. Remember Lakeview, it shows on the next couple of slides that Lakeview doesn't look like it's going to hit capacity. But remember, the use capacity is we have our special needs, many of our special needs classes over there. So the student-teacher ratio is a little bit, lower in those classes. So we will need a portable probably at Lakeview next year. This just shows the housing overview activity. And if you look at the yellow squares, the future subdivision is mainly in Oak Point. We do have one that's starting up at Witt and King Road, just south of Brent Elementary School. In the Tribute, we have Waterford Point, Phase 3, which is 105 lots. We have Westbury, Phase 3, 150 lots just adjacent to Prestwick. We have Valencia on the Lake. We have Phase 3B. These are, smaller lots, so these will be a smaller price point. So we see these going fairly quickly. This is that area I was talking to you. Villages of Creekwood, just south of Brent Elementary School. And they have 117 lots that they're should be closing fairly soon. This is a new slide that we've added. And so the top portion of the slide represents those transfer students that come into our district from out of district, and it lists that. The bottom portion of the slide represents those students that are within our district and that leave our district for whatever reason. So there may be a teacher that teaches in Frisco. So the price points of the homes here in Little Elm ISD are less expensive. So a lot of times teachers in Frisco that teach in Frisco might live in Little Elm, and they take their students there. But you also see some leadership prep schools and that you see in some charter schools, which we'll go over here in just a moment. This is our 10-year forecast. And you can see that bubble, 4th and 5th grade bubble that you see as it moves through the system. And of course, you always see that 9th grade bubble for those that repeat some courses to make sure they can be enough to be a sophomore the following year. This just represents our 10-year forecast. Again, we talked about Lakeview. You don't really see any yellow, but we will see some capacity issues there at Lakeview just because of the growth in Valencia. And of course, Prestwick is going to be a little strained this year until that's converted to K-5 next year. This is our middle school or secondary campuses. Lakeside Middle School is kind of like Prestwick. It's going to be, a little tough for Miss Carr over there. Next year, it's going to be a little crowded. But our 2 new middle schools will open up 2020-21. This is another slide that we've added. This just represents charter schools in Texas. There are currently more than 750 charter schools across the state of Texas. 53 separate campuses opened or began reporting enrollment in 2018-19. Their reporting requirements are much less stringent than the ISD's requirements. And so I don't necessarily understand that. But that's the way the law is written. This represents a charter campus in DFW. And there are approximately 220 charter campuses opening in regions 10 and 11. This kind of shows Tarrant, Denton County, Collin County, and Dallas County. 11 new campuses opened within DFW in 2018. The total charter school enrollment increased by roughly 500 students between 2017-18 and 2018-19. There are actually 3 that are going to be opening up next year. They're in Tarrant County. These are a list of those campuses. The majority of them we see are in Dallas and Tarrant, but you do see them kind of moving towards that Collin County and Denton County. The next 2 slides is interesting. It shows how a charter school, this is just a vacant piece of land, and then the next slide shows kind of a strip center where it used to be a grocery store. They're converted to a charter school. So within 8 months or 4 months, you can have a school with 1,100 students automatically. And so those students could be taken away from our district, which has a big impact to Mr. Anderson in the budget. So we're starting to track this a little bit more carefully, bring that to your attention. And it's just kind of the nature of the world we live in now in Texas. This is another case study of different locations. In summary, the employment rate is currently below 3.5%, 17% over the last 5 years. We'll probably see that kind of decrease over the next couple of years. I talked to Mr. Templeton today. He says when you look at these numbers, you might look at the next 5 years. After that, it's kind of, we're not quite sure what's necessarily going to happen. And so, that next 5 years, he's fairly comfortable on those. Point, we're still working on the growth out there. And it looks like in 10 years, we'll be over 10,000 students. So that's very quick, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Reeves?
No.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. All right, next up, action items. We'll have the first item up is consider the election of officers. I'm just going to ask if you guys don't disagree. We'll go through the election of officers, but everybody stay in their seat. Is that okay? And then we can reorganize for the next meeting. I don't know about you, I just don't like the musical chairs.
I'm fine with that.
If that's okay.
Yep.
All right, so at this time, nominations are now in order for the office of president.
I'd like to nominate David Montemayor.
Okay. Mr. Montemayor is nominated for the office of president. Are there any further nominations? All right, no further nominations. Nominations are now closed. I need a vote for Mr. Montemayor as, you don't have to call for a second. I need a vote for Mr. Montemayor as president. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Here you go.
It's your gavel.
There's the go.
Awesome. All right. So then, I guess, is there any nominations for vice president?
I'll nominate Jason Olson.
All right. Is there any other nominations? All right. All those in favor for Jason Olson as vice president? Any opposed? Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. And now, is there any nominations for secretary?
I will nominate Alex Flores for secretary.
Okay. Is there any other nominations?
I'll go ahead and nominate Dan Blackwood.
Okay. All right. So first vote on Jason, I'm sorry, as for Alex for secretary. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. The motion passes. I guess, yeah.
Mhm.
Passes. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And now we'll move on to additional action items.
Good evening again. The administration is coming forward with BBE local policy update. This update is regarding the completion of a yearly background check by all board members via the district's volunteer system. And at this time, the administration recommends the approval of Little Elm ISD policy BBD local update as submitted.
All right. Is there a motion to approve BBE local as submitted? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions
No.
on policy? All right, all those in favor for approving BB local? No one opposed? Motion passes. All right, thank you very much. Now you also have DEC local.
Yep, I'm on a roll here. DEC local policy update is to define the applicable 12-month period of measurement as recommended by the district's legal firm. So again, at this time, the administration recommends approval of the Little Elm ISD policy DEC local update as submitted.
Is there a motion to accept DEC local as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any questions or comments? All those in favor of accepting DEC local? Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you. For number 3 here, we have EIC local policy update. This is regarding academic achievement class rankings as regards advanced placement and honors courses as recommended by the curriculum department. The administration is recommending approval of Little Elm ISD policy EIC local update as submitted.
Is there a motion to accept EIC local as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on this one?
A quick, sorry, just a quick question on this. Is on this one in particular, the EIC, is this one more just, because I see some corrections in here. Is some of it just corrections and then we removed some information?
I'll have Ms. Mika, or Dr. Mika answer some of your questions. Is this submitted through curriculum?
Thank you. We did an audit, the first section that you have is completely crossed out at the top. We did an audit of all of our current high school students, and we no longer have students that fit under that graduation requirement for 2000 class that entered at the, scroll down so we can see, I think it was 2012. So that's why we took out that section for the students that began their freshman year then.
Okay.
We have 2 students left that began grade 9 in 2013-14. So that's why we're leaving in that next session. So hopefully we'll be able to take that out this time next year. The only other change you see down at the end is that we are adding the word honors to our pre-AP GPA and AP GPA, primarily because to the pre-AP section, pre-AP College Board is now beginning in the 2020 school year, so one more year. They will be charging us for the use of that name, and the price is quite exorbitant. And you will find that many school districts are moving away from the use of pre-AP and moving to the word honors or advanced. And so we're going to go ahead and put that into place now as we're starting to write the course guide for 2020. And so beginning in the 2020 school year, we will no longer be using the term pre-AP for any of our coursework. We are leaving it in our policy because we will have students that are transferring in from other districts who do choose to pay the price for the use of the word pre-AP.
Thank you. That answers it.
All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, and then the final from our department is the 1 FTE for a physical therapist for special education. This is the addition of 1 FTE to be allocated to serve as a special populations physical therapist in order to meet the growing demands of the department. To date, this position has existed through contracted services. So it is a service that we've already provided. So the funds are already set aside for this service. What we're asking is that it become a district position, and those funds will then be transferred over from the contracted services area to cover the cost of this position. But it has become evident that it's more economical for the district to hire the position than to continue to contract out.
Is there any further questions? Or actually, no, is there a motion to accept this FTE?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or concerns on this? All right, all those in favor? All approved, motion passes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Very much. And Grant? Mr. Anderson?
Here, David. David, put your back down just a little bit.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Gallagher. You have the April financials that you received in your board packet. And some of the notes to the financials is that the budget amendment financial information presented include current amendments in the financial information through June 2019. Financials include general fund, capital projects fund, debt service fund, and the special revenue funds. The general fund accounts for the daily operational cost. Major budget amendments. They increased local revenue by $1.5 million for an increase in tax collections based on 100% estimated revenue. As you may remember, that we budget our revenue at 98%, and that also goes for the state revenue, and we're increasing our state revenue by $1 million, funding based on 100% estimated revenue. And then I'll increase our general fund debt service payment by about $2.1 million to pay off general fund lease obligations. And for the future years, we're freeing up our general fund from the obligation of debt. Capital Projects Fund, increase the high school athletic fields bond budget by $1.3 million, and Rod will be discussing that with you tonight. Debt Service Fund, increased bond proceeds of $3.9 million and offset by $3,956,000 transferred to escrow account and fees related to refunding general fund maintenance tax notes. As you remember, a couple board meetings ago, we approved the sale of the Proposition B to pay off the general fund debt. And this is just an accounting transaction. It'll be offset. And then decreased local tax collections due to slowdown in collection rate and increased state revenue for existing debt allotment funding. So the net gain to the budgetary fund balance in the debt service fund is $111,000. Increased estimated bond principal and decreased estimated bond interest by $277,000, which is net zero, just an accounting transaction. And other financial considerations in the future is, of course, about the opening the operations facility, which will happen in July, an estimated $170,000 of additional operating costs, and then, of course, open up Strike and Walker Middle School in 2020-21. And we discussed in the past possibility of slowdown in the growth of taxable assessed values. And I think you could see by Rod's presentation on the demographics that we're seeing a slowdown. That we reported to the board that indicates TAVs for this current year, about a 9% decrease from prior year's 20% growth. Certified taxable assessed values are normally released middle of July prior to setting next year's budget. And then we also just have been discussing the 86th legislative session and the proposed school finance bills, which include items which will impact property taxes, school funding formula, and instructional programs. The governor signed into law House Bill HB 3. And through the process, we've been trying to align our financial decision-making with the timeliness of information. The governor signed the bill into law on June 12th, and it'll become law on August 26th. There will also be continued guidance from the state regarding HB 3. And that'll be going into the future, into the next few months. The Texas school districts will be receiving further guidance from the state and commissioner relating to certain details of HB 3, which will impact the 2019-20 school year and future years. And Texas school districts will be setting teacher raises, and some districts have been based on forecasted revenue. From HB 3, actual revenue may be higher or lower than forecasted, and this may potentially impact Texas school districts' mandated compensation increase. And there's just another future financial considerations, the risk of financial sustainability of the state. At the state level will be a continued discussion at both the local and state levels. The major impact of HB3, the increase in state funding, LAISD is projecting additional overall revenue due to HB3. Its estimated revenue will be finalized in August when the Board of Trustees adopts the budget. Tax rate compression and a 2.5% future property tax cap. Maintenance and operations tax rate decrease approximately 11 cents from $1.17 to approximately $1.06. Overall tax rate decreases from $1.64 to approximately $1.53 per $100 of taxable assessed values. And taxable home value of $300,000 would realize a reduction in property taxes of approximately $330. The Board of Trustees will adopt the actual tax rate at the August 2019 regular board meeting. And the third major impact is the increased spending on certain instructional programs. The state will require additional funding on some current and new instructional programs. And number four, the increase of compensation to staff, which the law reads and that in a year in which the basic allotment increases, the district must use 30% of the increase in formula funding for compensation increases to full-time non-administrative staff to be allocated as follows. 75% for teachers, counselors, librarians, and nurses, prioritizing differentiated compensation for classroom teachers with 6 or more years of experience. And then 25% of all other non-administrative staff. So future financial considerations, LAISD will bring the following compensation recommendation to the Board of Trustees in August 2019 to be approved in the 2019-20 budget. All teachers' employees on the teacher pay scale will receive a minimum of $2,000 pay raise. All teachers and employees on the teacher pay scale with 6 or more years of credible service will receive an additional $500 pay raise. And teacher hiring schedule will be adjusted based on years of service to ensure monetary incentive for experienced teachers, and starting pay will increase from $50,000 to $52,000. And again, this is, of course, contingent on the board passing the budget in August 2019. All other employees, which does not apply to teachers, nurses, and librarians, will receive approximately 3% raise. Other future financial considerations which we have discussed is ongoing preventive and deferred maintenance costs of buildings, the possible slowdown or decline in tax collection rates, and considered unencumbering general fund budget from general fund debt and capital outlay costs. As we've discussed, the sale of additional bonds passed under Proposition B, that those will be refunded prior to August 31st, 19, and to pay off the general fund capital lease debt prior to August 31st. With possible 2018-19 general fund savings and surplus. And approved capital reimbursement resolution from 2017 bond of up to $10 million communicated in the bond program election. The general fund budget, proposed amendments to the estimated revenue is about $2.4 million in increased revenue. And the campus appropriations to the campus functions is 74%, and that has been about 77%, but a decrease because of the debt service paying that off in a function 71 of $2.1 million. And you see the total appropriations match our estimated revenue, so we still continue to maintain a balanced budget for 2018-19. Our fund balance, you can see our current fund balance, 28.9, budgetary fund balance, and proposed budget. None of the amendments are impacting fund balance. Capital outlay fund, let me see, as we've as we bring up each month, that we've had $175 million of our $240 million of authorized bonds sold. And you can see some of the approved bond projects. And this is just a roll forward number from this sheet to the next, about $26 million. The only change on here besides the year-to-date expenditures is Rod will come up and visit with you regarding the high school athletic fields and increasing that to $1.3 million. And so we have the issued bond balance, which is the net of the current budget, is $7.2 million. The board approved capital projects, the non-bond funds, you can see our current budget about 11.7 million, and our project balance is $4 million. You can see the transportation operation facilities getting completed at 69% of it being expensed. Our debt service, we have a estimated budgetary fund balance of $5.4 million. And you can see our year-to-date realized revenue and our year-to-date expenditures. We'll have some more payments in August as far as our principal and interest. So the administration recommends approval of the 2019 financial reports as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve the financial reports as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions for Mr. Anderson? All right, all those in favor of approving? Any opposed? All right, thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Anderson.
you.
All right, Mr. Martin? Oh, he's not here. Yep.
Mr. Martin is out tonight, so Mr. Reeves will be stepping in for him.
I'll do my best. Big shoes to fill, Mr. Martin. So I'd like to, good evening again. I'd like to discuss some consideration approval of the Lobo Lane conversion study. And so we're looking at hiring one of our architectural firms that we have in a pool, HKS, to conduct a feasibility study of all the facilities along Lobo Lane. You know, we have Zellers, Lakeside Middle School, and we have Powell. And we've been, you know, kind of discussing, you know, what's going to be the elementary, what's going to be the early childhood, where's the administration going to go, and the training facility is going to go. And so we thought it was important to bring in a third party to have a fresh look at it. I believe you have the architect's proposal within your backup. And so what they'll do is kind of take an in-depth look. It'll take about an 8-week period to look at those, and we'll be coming back to the board for recommendations. So this is to authorize us to go ahead and work with HKS, our architectural firm. That would be $24,600 and then $500 not to exceed for reimbursables. And so the administration recommends the proposal be accepted and that the study be commissioned. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
First, is there a motion to accept this this bid?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, is any questions or concerns on the purpose of this proposal? All right, all those in favor of accepting this bid? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You have, I think, was
I have
there
one more,
another?
I believe.
Yeah? Yep.
So, yes. And so we're here to discuss consideration approval of high school athletic field concourse and concessions area. And so remember, we do have our ongoing project that we have, the athletic fields, football field and track, baseball and softball fields that we're working on. And so this is sort of an ancillary project to that. And we'll go over the budgets here. Mr. Martin presented a budget to you earlier that had a line item in that budget for this concourse work. However, as I go through the presentation, I'll show how there wasn't enough money in there. And so we'll go through that process. And so that's why we need to come back to you to request some additional funding for that project. So the scope of the work will be a new concrete concourse between the fields. If you look at your drawing, on to the top is your baseball field, to the south is your softball field, and over to the left side or to the west of your track and football area. This concrete concourse will have a new concession building, which is a little darker shape there right in the middle. Which is great about this, Mr. Martin, working with our architects, Corrigan, is place that concession building down in the middle of all those three areas versus being on top of that hill. So you don't have to go up to get some concessions. They'll be right there. We'll have toilet facilities, also drainage. Currently, there's kind of a swell between the two, so that'll be covered up. And there'll also be steps and ramps and retaining walls, and that'll also act as seating as well. And so actually, we are reusing some of the bleachers, the current bleachers at the baseball softball for the football field, and so to save money on that. So if you look at the baseball softball main stands, they will be covered areas. And so it's going to be a really nice area when it's all completed. The new concession toilet building will have 2 serving windows. So if you're a baseball fan, you can look at the baseball game. If you're a softball fan, you can look at the softball area. We'll have restrooms. We'll have a area for officials to change. We'll also have exterior water fountains, and also it'll be masonry. Have to be masonry based upon the city ordinances, metal roofing panels, which would be great. And also it's very durable. So Mr. Martin has been very nice working with our Danny Cogdell and myself to make sure it's easy for us to maintain. So we appreciate that from him. So this was the original budget that Mr. Martin brought to you back last year. And so if you look at the kind of circled areas in red and the shaded areas, you'll see that's something called constructed items. It's a little under $1 million. That was allocated for the concourse project. That money will be coming back to the bond program. And so you'll see that money come back. So when we're asking for a little over 2-point-something million, almost $1 million, that will be coming back to the overall capital outlay projects. And the reason why it was insufficient is because we had to move so quickly to get those baseball, softball fields done, and also the football field and track, because we needed to make sure that they were ready before when students came back. And so that was a placeholder on that. This is the new budget. We'll be requesting that you approve the a little over $2 million for this project. And the factors that made it the increase was we had to have more toilets based upon the current code, which made the facility bigger. We had to have masonry because of the town ordinances, had to be full masonry. We have very expansive soils. I don't know if you've seen the track and football field out there, but we made several passes for chemical injection. And so we're seeing that also in the concourse and also in the baseball, softball fields. And also we're replacing the primary runs. Currently, the primary runs for the lights go right through the fields. So if you're at home plate, you go to one light, your home plate go to another light. We want to move those outside the turfed areas. So if you ever have to repair them, replace them, we're not tearing up the turf. And so Mr. Martin's been great working with us to get those outside of that. So those are sort of the mitigating factors of why we're asking for the increase. So the administration recommends approval of the project budget, and Jackson Construction, in your packet, you'll see Jackson Construction is one of our contractors. They have what they call a GMP in there. It's a guaranteed maximum price, I think of $1.175 million. So they're not going to exceed that. But Mr. Martin has a kind of overall project budget. And so we're asking you to approve that and authorize the superintendent or his designee to negotiate and execute the required contracts. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a motion to approve this new budgeted for the concourse area? Is there a second? Questions?
Yes, I have a question. With the new concession stands, AC, HVAC?
Yes.
So it's going to be included?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe they have many split systems on that. And so
Okay.
I'll double check. I'm
Okay.
99% sure, but that 1% let me check and I can.
Because the
make sure I
last time
get
they
that
didn't
back
have, the
to you.
concession stands didn't have any heat, any AC, and sitting inside of there burns
It
up
gets hot.
pretty fast.
Football stadium, I know that. So
MT as well. So just want to make sure they could have they're comfortable in there.
I'm almost
especially
positive
at
many
100 degrees.
splits, but I'll double check and make
Okay.
sure I get that Mr. Gallagher to let you know.
Just a clarification question. So the original 985,000 that was approved,
That's correct.
that's coming back to help offset the 2.2. So we're basically coming back asking for an increase of a little over 1.2 million.
That's correct.
Okay, just making
That's
sure.
correct.
I wanted to make sure I understood that.
The reason why there's a separate budget is because we have Hellas working on one side of the project and then
Right.
Jackson Construction doing another. So there's two different companies. And so we need two separate budgets, but we will be refunded that portion back to the general.
To the general fund, okay.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
I did have a question. So the current restrooms that are up towards the gate area, is that going to come down?
No, that'll still be there. And also that can be converted for storage or office space for Ms. Howell. So we'll be working with them directly to make sure to see what they need for.
But would that be retro to kind of match the new facade and
No.
roof or anything of the rest of it?
We can, if that's something if the board is interested in doing, we can definitely look at that.
Okay.
So. I know Mr. Martin looked at the
No,
materials
just
to try to
just
match.
for it to match somewhat.
I know he looked, as he was doing the new facility, he wanted to try to make it complement the existing facility. And so I don't think one will stand out necessarily against the other one. So.
And I didn't see on that drawing, but are there going to be water fountains and stuff on?
Yes, I think if you look on the towards the baseball side, on the outside, you'll see water fountains. So there'll be exterior water fountains.
Okay. All right. And then just one last question. So I do see the Jackson at 2175.
Yeah, 2175, yes.
But on here, we have the Jackson GMP at 2130.
Yeah, if you look, I think there's a $45,000 allowance. If you add those
That's
two numbers
added too?
together,
Okay.
that should equal that amount.
That was going to be my clarification. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. So all those in favor of approving this budget? Any opposed?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Now we're moving item A from the consent agenda up into our action items. So Mr. Anderson, if you would come back to us.
That's in the board package. You have the expenditures over $50,000 summary report. And in it, you have Heinemann for the purchase of level literacy intervention kits, which Ashley Glover is purchasing. And it's a charge about $250,000. Illuminate Education renewal amount, which is suites and assessment software and navigation for a subject bundle. You can see that's a 3-year contract. In year 1, $51,000, year 2, $54,000, and year 3, $58,000. And the Insight voice over IP phone services, which is a renewal amount going from a monthly fee to an annual fee. And UniFirst, the district is ordering uniforms for maintenance, grounds, and custodial staff. The budget about $66,000. And the administration moves the board approves the Little Elm ISD expenditures over $50,000 summary report dated June 17th, 2019 as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve these expenditures over $50,000?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on these items?
Just a question on this UniFirst. We didn't do uniforms last year. We're doing uniforms this year.
No, I
Is it
think,
six?
I think there's a couple times we brought it put into the budget. It hadn't got ordered, and so this is coming back. It's another ordering them. If we did have it last year.
Yeah,
That's
just
a
to say prior year
possibility.
contract is 0.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Oh, I'm sorry. If you're asking the question, no, they have not ordered uniforms. This would be the first year they have. If we ever had it in the budget, we just order it.
So do they have uniforms now?
No.
They just wearing jeans and t-shirt?
Polo shirts.
If they have polo or if they have t-shirts.
Custodial just wears jeans and t-shirts.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, clarification question, just to make sure on Insight. On that Insight contract, that's actually a 2-year contract. No, 1 year?
It's a 1-year contract for $120,000. And we were paying it monthly at a prorated.
Right, so help me understand how the cost just doubled. Sorry, Clay, I'm just making sure 1 + 1's not adding up to 2 there. That's the reason why I was thinking it was a 2-year deal. That made sense. But if you're telling me it's a 1-year deal, then I got.
They're showing the monthly at nearly 6,000. That's just the base cost. There's taxes on top of that. The actual monthly is close to 10,000. Excuse me.
Okay, so it is actually closer to 10,000 total
Yes.
actually monthly bill.
Correct.
Okay, that helps out. I just didn't know there were that much taxes. That's the reason why I was kind of throwing me off.
Telecom taxes.
Yeah.
You think
Right,
I know
telecom
that? You
taxes
think
is-
I would know that one? But
Wait a minute, hold on a minute. You mean telling me telecom taxes are $5,000 a month extra?
Yes.
Taxes are about, that's,
That's 100%.
Well, it's
no, it's closer to about 75.
It's about 4,000. We're about, I think the actual cost is like 5,800 and then we're about 4,000 in taxes.
You ever looked at your AT&T bill?
Hey,
I'm just
man,
saying.
that's, look at all the bills.
Yeah, that's not
So it's
taxes and fees.
Yeah, that's, trust me. I didn't think it was that high, but now that I started,
75%?
can be.
All those
Government
line items.
likes to get their dime out of that,
I had
sir.
to pick my jaw up at the floor as well because I was kind of asking the same question. Wait a minute, it's not, and it's like, okay. So.
So
Yes.
should we add to the description what the,
No,
No?
I think the plus taxes is it's just more of a clarification question to make sure.
okay.
There's really no change.
No, there's no change. It's,
Prior to renewal.
yeah, prior year is still.
We'll be locking the price.
Yeah.
So when we have our two new middle schools, is it gonna increase that year then?
We're charged per phone. So
Really?
it depends, there are different levels, there are different levels of phones. We have the unlimited extensions, which you can dial as many as you need. And then there's classrooms typically go to about half that cost. If I remember, the unlimiteds are around $20 an extension per month. And then the classroom phones are about $10 a month.
Okay.
So we'll probably pull some from Lakeside since they won't be used. So it shouldn't be 100% increase, but there will be an increase, yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of approving these expenditures over 50,000? Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, so any other changes to the consent agenda? All right, so is there a motion to accept the consent agenda items as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right. Consent agenda passes. All right, well, thank you very much. So I guess board comment or president comments, just thank you to the board for nominating me and trusting me enough to take on this role for the next 12 months at least. I'll do my best. All right. Is there any other comments from the rest of the board?
Start down there.
Mr. English?
Congratulations to the officers that were elected. Appreciate your service. Mrs. Myers, thank you very much for your service for the last couple of years. It's been great. Welcome to the hot seat, David. Get to join the hot seat.
That's a big shoes to fill.
Yeah, yes, you do. Over to sometime. Thank you, staff and everything. Really appreciate what you guys are doing over the summer, and as well as all the projects that are going on. Things are looking really, really nice. Had a couple of requests for next meeting. Would like to bring students, and we're going to probably do this in August, like to bring a couple students in for, and I mentioned that before, a couple students in for scholarship awards. So I had a scholarship award I want to give 2 students. So I'm going to do that. And 2, see if we want to have a little bit more discussion on athletics. That's it.
All right.
No comment. Just thank you to Ms. Myers for the last 2 years. Great job. Appreciate everything you've done for the board and for staff and for the district moving it forward. Other than that, I hope staff get some time off and enjoy the rest part of the summer as much as you can.
Oh, sorry.
No comment.
Okay, just real quick, I wanted to thank Melissa, 2 years, been a great president. So thank you for all your service and work. Congratulations, guys, to the new officers. Well, I guess y'all are still officers, but anyway, you know what it is. Thank you, guys. Have a great summer. And I'm looking forward to, I guess, the budget in August. Always a fun year. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I'll echo, thank you, Melissa, for your service the last 2 years. You've done an amazing job as a board president, and congratulations, Mr. Montemayor. I know you do a great job, and also to the officers elected, so thank you all very much. And to the staff, I just want to say a huge thank you to each of you for the work that you've been doing, the work that you'll continue doing. Thank you to the teachers. I know, it's been a wonderful year and lots of great things happening. And ultimately, it's the teachers in the classrooms that are really getting the work done. But the support that you guys provide is critical. So I appreciate what each one of you do.
Well, thank you very much. I guess if there's not anything else, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, meeting adjourns at 9:59 p.m.
Well, I lied. I thought it would be there before 10 o'clock. Maybe not.